There was one final act of Boris Johnson's tour to the USA. He went to the United Nations last night to speak about climate change. And of course, remember, he's in the chair for the COP26 summit, which is coming up in Glasgow in a couple of months' time. Boris has been on quite a journey on this issue. He was pretty sceptical about climate change 15 to 20 years ago, or sceptical at least as a journalist. But as time has gone on, and particularly since he became Prime Minister, this appears to have become a bigger and bigger issue. In fact, I think after last night's speech, the manner in which he delivered it, I think this is now becoming, for him, the defining issue, not just of his trip to the USA, but actually of his entire premiership. And I wonder, is he right to do this? Let's have a look at Boris Johnson addressing the UN last night.
We need the world to come to Glasgow to make the commitments necessary. And we're not talking, I'm afraid, about stopping the rise in temperatures. We can't do that. It's too late to stop the rise in temperatures. But to restrain that growth, as I say, to 1.5 degrees. And that means we need to pledge collectively to achieve carbon neutrality, net zero, by the middle of the century. And that will be an amazing moment if we can do it. And when Kermit the Frog sang, "It's not easy being green." You remember that one? I want you to know that he was wrong. He was wrong. It is easy. It's not only easy, it's lucrative and it's right to be green. He was also unnecessarily rude to Miss Piggy, I thought, Kermit the Frog.
Well, that's Boris for you. I'm not quite sure that Kermit the Frog was that relevant, but there we are. Interesting, isn't it, that he's absolutely certain that if we take some measures that he recommends, that climate change will be limited to 1.5% in terms of rise. But he's literally playing God. Now, as if any political figure can tell you exactly what will happen in the years to come. And whilst it's difficult to believe that with the world population now over 7.5 billion, that man is not making some impact on his environment, it's also true to say there are other factors way beyond the control of Boris Johnson or anybody else, such as volcanic activity or sunspot activity. But Boris Johnson has set himself up to do this, and we are going to cut carbon emissions. He was proud of the fact in the speech that our emissions are down by 44% since 1990. Well, if you deindustrialise, if you subsidise wind energy, if you make the cost of energy so high, it's not surprising that your cement works go, your steel works go, your refineries go, your chemical plants go, and both of your aluminium smelters close. What we've actually done in many areas of business is we've outsourced CO2 to India, China, and elsewhere. Now, I am not saying that this isn't important, but what I am saying is that Boris Johnson should not play God. What I am saying is that all of this isn't worth a light if China doesn't play the same game. And there was cheering last night in DC. Indeed, Stanley Johnson, his father, was there last night. Isn't it marvellous? The Chinese have said they won't invest any more in overseas coal-fired plants. But then the Chinese built 61 new coal-fired power stations in the first 6 months of this year, so I'm not sure that's entirely relevant. Is it right that a Prime Minister from a country that produces 1% of the world's CO2 makes this his number one priority, and that you have to go on paying the price for it? Now, I don't think that is the right priority. I think people are more worried about rising prices, particularly rising fuel prices. I think people are more worried about the pandemic and whether it'll return. I think they're more worried about whether their kids will ever be able to afford a house or the lifestyle that they've had. And I think he's making a mistake, politically at least, in making this his number one priority. But as ever, please tell me what you think. Has Boris got this right? Is it absolutely the number one priority for him and for our country. Want your point of view, gbviews@gbnews.uk.